Hi there, Nisha. So, great job writing these new essays. Let's see what you've done. I saw that you also wrote your error list, so good job. Keep it up. Okay, so let's take a look and see what you've done. The pie chart illustrates 6 council expenditures: education, community care, social services, environment, leisure, and other, done by 3 regions. That is Yorkshire, Derbyshire, and Lancashire in UK in the year 2014. Okay, up to this point, okay, great. Except that we don't really say that an expenditure is done. We say maybe that an expenditure is made by 3 regions, and then you don't want this that's is. You could have just said here, comma, namely, and that would have worked beautifully. Then, overall, all the 3 regions had or made their major expenditure in leisure, education, and community care, whereas the lowest expense was made in social services, followed by environment. So, it's really a matter of tense here, Nisha. Because we're talking about the year 2014, it's clearly in the past. So you don't want any present perfect here, but instead you want past simple. So all 3 regions had their major expenditure or made their major expenditure. That would have been fine. Yorkshire's highest expenditure was made in the field of education, or was made in education. That's fine. I'd like to see you vary the word expenditure a little bit, maybe by adding the word spending or expenses or something else, really to kind of provide some sort of variety. Okay, so Yorkshire's highest expenditure or highest expense, or maybe the greatest proportion of Yorkshire's expenses, something to kind of vary it up a little bit, was made in education at approximately 30%. You don't want this, which is structure here. It doesn't quite fit. Followed by leisure at, again, 25%. Okay. Yorkshire's lowest expenditure was, again, 2014, okay? Don't forget that it's in the past, was in environment and other. Now, here, because other is actually basically the name of the category, you could have put it in quotations to really show that, this is the category I'm referring to. So, and other, again, at around 10% each. There was a moderate expense for community care. That was good. There was a moderate expense, okay, for community care and social services at 20 and 30 and 10% respectively. Derbyshire had most of their expenditures in leisure, education, and community care at approximately 40, 25, and 15% respectively. So some little changes here. I mean, the structure is beautiful. It's perfect. But there's just a few little areas of syntax and grammar that need to be corrected. On the other hand, the lowest expenditure was for environment and other at about, without this, which is at about 9% each. And the smallest expense, or the lowest proportion, was on social services, okay? Because we're talking about percentages here. It's difficult to talk about just the least expense. It's just the smallest proportion, at around only 2%. Lancashire, without the had the majority of their spending on leisure and education, which was around 30% each. Now, here you see, Nisha, that I kept it because you keep using this. So obviously it's a structure that you really feel comfortable with. So I kept it, but I did change around the grammar just a tiny bit. So leisure and education, which was around 30% each, and it, referring to Lancashire here, moderately spent with a T on community care, social services, environment, and other, again, at approximately 10% each. So basically, as you can see, some little changes to the words and the syntax completely changes the accuracy and the clarity of your answer. Okay, great. So let's move on now to your task 2. Many people argue that conventional way of schooling is obsolete and uninteresting, which is not suitable to every children, and students become unwilling to study, while others believe schools should adapt modern way of teaching. Okay, it really sounds here like you've got at least 2 sentences all kind of rolled up into one. So let's see if we can separate them a little bit and fix the grammar here. Because as far as your ideas go, I understand them and I know what you're trying to say, but it will really help your score if the grammar is a little better. So let's see. Many people argue that the conventional way of schooling is obsolete and uninteresting. So it is not suitable to every child. Full stop. As a result, students become unwilling to study, while others believe that schools should adopt, which is with an O, not an A. It's a different word. So if you're not sure the difference of these 2 words, adopt versus adapt, check them out online. So should adopt a modern way of teaching. In my opinion, an interactive and more practical way of teaching is a modern way of study, which can make students more involved. The customary, here it is, way of study should be discarded from the education system. Educational, actually. There's a fine difference behind it, but if you're really trying to get a higher score, the correct phrase here is educational system. So it should be discarded from the educational system as it is not beneficial to the students. I'm not 100% sure, Nisha, what you mean here. It is not beneficial to the students, creates suffering. This is a little strong. So I would probably say something a little softer, like it creates boredom. It doesn't inspire interest. Something like this would be probably a better idea here. This essay will discuss both sides of the arguments and support ideas by giving. Okay, after by you need an ing from INF and Harvard University. Fine. First of all, teaching in a modern environment should be more interactive, which creates interest in pupils, and they get involved, in studies more. In addition to that, it should also be more practical, because practical learning gives real-time experience and children participate more proactively, and by that they remember more. Okay, a lot of stuff happening in this sentence, Nisha. Although I like the message of what you're saying, again, some of the grammar makes the message kind of get lost. So the first thing to look at is this word it. What is it referring to? Because if you look at your previous sentence, you've got a ton of nouns. You've got teaching, environment, interest, pupils, studies. So what exactly is this it referring to? It's not totally clear, so maybe you should avoid using it, even though it's a great way to create cohesion. Maybe you should avoid it and use the actual noun instead. So I'm assuming here what you meant was teaching. So teaching should be more practical, because practical learning gives real-time experience, allowing children to participate more proactively, and by that they remember more. So you can see, just using this ing here instead of the and, I have done a couple of things. I have made the sentence flow better. I've actually made it grammatically more advanced, and the message is really just clearer to read. Okay, moving on. For instance, as per the study done by IMF, schools which have more practical ways, plural, of teaching have 30% more high school results than other schools. Now, I think what you meant here was 30% higher high school results than other schools, okay? Because as it's written, it's not accurate. Hence, schools should adopt, again with an O, more practical and interactive methods, plural, of teaching in classrooms. Secondly, the standard teaching system. It's a little too wordy here, the standard way of teaching system. So it's either the standard way of teaching or the standard teaching system. Okay, but all of these words together don't fit. So, secondly, the standard way of teaching does not benefit the students without two. And again, you've got this infect here, which I'm not sure how you mean to use it, but in fact, it does not fit. So let's get rid of it. So this teaching system does not benefit the students because, or rather, in fact, so comma, in fact, one word, or 2 words, sorry, it affects pupils, apostrophe after the S, intelligence in a negative way. The conventional way of teaching is a set way of teaching to all students, which does not suit every student's, apostrophe, mind. Furthermore, forcing students to learn by dull and monotonous ways of study directly affects, forcing students to learn, affects their curriculum score. We don't really say curriculum score, we just mean grade, really. So that's a more accurate word. We can take the example of Albert Einstein, who, instead of he, could not perform in his class due to boring and tedious ways of study. Get rid of this. But he outperformed in practical study. Therefore, students' performance drops when study is dull and not so interesting. Very nicely done here. Your wrap-up sentence is beautiful. To conclude, the conventional way of teaching not only affects pupils' school performance negatively, but it also, change your word order, makes them avoid study without the two. Schools should not adapt, but instead adopt with an O. It's a different word, like I said. Use your search engine to check out the difference. Schools should adopt more practical and interactive ways of teaching as they encourage students to take more participation and as they help them to involve students more in studies. So your ideas, Nisha, are great. It's just some little things with your grammar, your word order, your syntax, these kinds of things that just need some cleaning up. But well done, really well done. Your structure is really quite nice. You've got it down. So keep up the good work. Make sure that you include these errors in your error correction list. Don't forget to correct your essays and send them back with your new essays. And we will be waiting for your next essays. Good luck and can't wait to see what you do next.